Bruce Wayne may appear to be a wealthy playboy, but beneath this facade, his true identity is that of the Batman, waging an endless war against crime. Join the Caped Crusader in Batman The Audio Adventures, the first scripted audio original featuring Batman and his villainous rogues gallery in a world premiere story of life and death in Gotham City, debuting exclusively on HBO Max. This rollicking adventure, told across 10 episodes, is written and directed by Emmy winner Dennis McNicholas, includes devilishly delightful original music by Doug Bossy, and performances by Rosario Dawson, John Leguizamo, Chris Parnell, Melissa Villaseñor, Seth Meyers, Jason Sudeikis, Brooke Shields, Fred Armisen, and many, many more. Go to hbomax.com/Batman Audio Adventures for more and stream Batman, The Audio Adventures only on HBO Max. Welcome to another episode of Countdown to Infinity, a Marvel's Avengers podcast. We talk all things Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this week is pretty big because a brand new movie just released, Marvel's The Eternals by director Chloe Zhao. And this is a pretty interesting one, I'll have to say. This is our spoiler-free, I guess, thoughts. Initially, we'll have a big spoiler-full discussion, including those after-credit scenes and some of those. Oh, you know, I wonder if the Easter Bunny directed this movie, because there's a lot of eggs. There's a lot of Easter eggs everywhere. My name's Emmanuel.
Hey, I'm Andrew.
And it's kind of this is maybe one of the most unique eps we've ever recorded.
Yeah, because we're on location, live, boots on the ground.
We're boots on the ground. I was going to say in the land that Eternals takes place, but that's just Earth.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
Nothing special there. But we are in Los Angeles, the city that never sleeps.
No, that's New York, right?
This
the
is
city of angels.
The Windy City.
Well, no.
It's been cold,
La La
though.
Land.
I will say, pretty windy for it not being the actual
Windy City.
We're here. We're having a lot of fun, and we'll talk about our thoughts. But before we talk about the movie, what do you think about the experience of watching this large-scale Marvel movie on the biggest screen since sliced bread?
I thought it was really, really cool. It was, just awesome. Like, I thought the IMAX back home was big, but
back on the farm.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like, man. Compared to in this theater, and I think it was really cool to be in like the heart of it all. And I mean, you see all the billboards when you come into town and stuff like that. And
it's on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yeah. And you said they just had like a premiere for the Gucci, or like a fashion show for House of Gucci,
which is, I mean, spoiler alert. That's why Andrew and I are here. We are models for Gucci.
We are indeed.
So that's why we were here.
I only model the Speedos,
and I only model hats.
Nice, just the hat.
Just the hats. I walked down with the Gucci hat, and nothing else.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really cool, and man, like, I love the sound system. I think, like,
really good.
It like rattled my innards.
It tore you up.
Yeah, it did. Like, it vibrated.
If anyone gets the chance to go to the Grauman's, well, I think it used to be called Grauman's Chinese Theaters, but now it's like TCL or something.
Yeah. He said it like 50 times in the intro, like the guy who was...
Yeah, we didn't pay attention at all. But it's a movie where a lot of things actually premiere across the street from the El Capitan, where this movie premiered. The Disney Old Theater.
Yeah.
But it's a tall screen. I'd say it's at least 70 feet tall.
It was like ridiculous. And it was funny because you were like, man, I can't see everything.
I really couldn't. I had to put my head like on the, I don't know. Couldn't go far back enough to see the whole screen.
Well, we all know what that neck do. We all know what that neck do.
People would be having conversations in Eternals, and I would be whipping my head right to left to be like, oh, I gotta see this guy's lips.
Yeah.
It's big. But this is a movie that's kind of geared perfectly for that, because in terms of scale, there's really nothing like this movie. It's got size-wise, some of the biggest characters in Marvel.
And you see the Celestials in the trailers, and you got hints of them in the Guardians movies and stuff
that's
like
right,
that.
because it's
And I mean, even Ego the Living Planet to an extent, and so it was really crazy to see literally like some of the biggest characters, like galactic-sized characters,
giant things
on the biggest screen
and that's
possible.
not a spoiler. That's just telling you there's some big things.
Yeah, well, and then like you hear like the sounds they make and stuff like that, and you're like, oh man, like
here's some of the sounds. Ready?
do they make those sounds?
Nah, I'm making those sounds.
Okay.
Those are the sounds probably.
It's like Dune.
Everyone will know. Everyone who watches this probably saw Dune.
You love Dune.
But it was a really unique experience, and I think if you're able to just watch it in IMAX, that's truly the way to go. I'm really happy that this movie didn't get a day and date Disney Plus premiere, because it definitely plays really well on the big screen. And also, the crowd was great. People were clapping and hooting and hollering.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like at the beginning, like the Marvel credits, or because it has the Marvel montage at the beginning where the dun 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 dun.
I don't know how.
But I love the song choice they used to intro this specific movie. It's from one of my favorite albums. So I'll leave it.
Oh, okay. I won't spoil
I
remember it now. Yeah,
it's just a really really cool thing that I never thought the MCU would get into. But it was really really awesome to see it in that specific scale.
Yeah.
And then I don't even. It might be one of the biggest in the country.
It's got to be the biggest I've been inside of. But theater. Well, let's talk about the movie. We're going to talk about just our thoughts of the film without spoiling it. Although, again, we're going to dive into it so deep later on in the week. But what'd you say?
Ham.
Oh yeah, ham. We're going to go ham. But before we do that, Andrew, what did you think generally about this movie? And then we'll talk a little bit how I guess it seems like everyone else is reacting to it. But what did you think about the Eternals?
I was actually a really big fan of it. I know some people say it runs kind of long, which I think it kind of needs to when you have like 10 characters that you're introducing. And it's not even like there's 10 Eternals, and then you have to introduce the Celestials, which there's like two or three, multiple of them.
Just regular old humans are in this
one,
too.
And you have to introduce the villains, which are the Deviants, and the Marvel. This isn't a spoiler because the Marvel Legends has the package out for one of the lead Deviants in Crow,
and he's in a trailer.
Yeah, and so and then you have to keep up with regular Easter eggs too. So you're already trying to keep up with those Easter eggs in a Marvel movie, and so the fact that you have to pay attention so much, I can see why it's kind of divisive to some extent, because a lot of it is going to be exposition. But I think in this sense it's warranted, because it's kind of like Dune, where like Dune was a lot of that, was a lot of exposition in a way, and they found creative ways to kind of not make it seem as so, to make it feel a little bit more organic. Yeah. And I think Chloe Zhao does really, really good here, and also balancing that typical MCU formula where like you have to inject the humor to it, or else you get a
lot of meta moments, I guess is what you'll call them.
Yeah, well, because and then if not, then you get your DC argument where it's like there's no jokes, everything is so serious and everything's so brooding all the time, and this and that, and then you get an overcorrection in the Justice League and stuff like that, and so I think this one does it the best it can, and I think hopefully it gains a lot of money, and I hope people like it. It looks like the audience score is tipping more in a positive direction than the critic score.
Stuff,
But I think it's really, really cool that Chloe Zhao genuinely wanted to do this. And I think at one point she said there was 12 Eternals, and she shaved two of them off.
Ooh-wee.
I think that she did the best that she could in the MCU formula. Yeah, because it's never going to be truly yours. Because then you get something like the Suicide Squad for James Gunn, and then people are like, "Well, this is odd," and you're like, "Well, this is fully James Gunn." But I think I was really excited. I can't wait to rewatch it and to see how it plays out in that sense of the rewatchability, because anytime a Marvel project comes out or a new Marvel thing comes out, I end up doing a rewatch of the MCU, and it'll be crazy to see how it holds up here. I think it introduces a lot of really, really big things that points us in the right direction for this new phase, because right now we've really got the multiversial aspect of it all with the WandaVision and all the Spider-Man hype and Doctor Strange and things like that. So and even Loki. So to see things on this aspect, where it's kind of in our universe and it's in our time, but a little bit more cosmic, is really, really cool, because now we can get into things like the Fantastic Four and the Galactus and the Silver Surfer and things like that. I'm really, really excited to see. This is kind of like a Guardians for a new generation. Like it opens up this other can of worms that I'm really, really excited to get into.
Yeah, it's definitely a kind of a diverging point, or I forgot what they called it in Loki. What do they call those? It's like a variant point or whatever, or like, I don't know. It's one of those points, I think, for Marvel, because it looks and feels a lot different than other things, but there may be other IP that Marvel has that kind of is closer to what the Eternals vibe is. And you'll have to listen to our spoiler full episode for more on that. But yeah, I thought that this movie introduces a lot of brand new things to Marvel in really interesting ways. Things that, and I mean, it definitely has one of the most diverse casts we've ever seen. I would say even in a movie like this, the Eternals here are a representative of so many different kinds of people. I think you're right. It does have a really hefty load that it has to tow, especially with all these characters who also have really complicated relationships and backstories. And there's a lot of like questionable things where like, okay, how much are we going to focus on this one person? And is that going to take away from really the main characters? Because even though there's 12 Eternals in this, there's really just a couple that are the story, the story engine of the whole thing. There's I think that there's a lot of familiarity to the idea of a giant group like them, going on a mission. And that may be what people are feeling. But I mean, I think the stakes could have never been, I mean, they're pretty high in this movie. And I think there's some really, really fun sequences. And I think the humor comes from multiple people because you have different Eternals, and there's still some really surprising stuff that happens in this. And I think if you're a fan of Marvel, this I think will open your eyes to maybe a brand new type of Marvel movie, even though it definitely still has, like you talked about, it has almost every single thing that you would expect from a Marvel movie too, which is kind of interesting that it has both of that. And I do feel like let's talk about some of the reaction stuff. I feel like a lot of people just have really high expectations of Chloe Zhao. Don't you think? She just won an Oscar. So I think a lot of people, especially critics, are just expecting maybe something that's impossible to make in a Marvel movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
She made a movie with one person who pooped in a bucket in a van and used like non-actors, and they filmed at sunset, and they were like meditated on set, there's all that stuff that's happening that you're like, wow, what an experience. And I don't know what some people wanted from her in a movie that has to gross, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and introduce honestly some pretty big MCU stuff. Like, it has to do all that too.
And that's what I think is crazy, is that like people say it's so not like, it feels like it's its own thing.
And we really haven't. We've been really busy, so we haven't actually. I don't think we've actually read any negative reviews. I haven't, anyways.
Yeah, it feels so independent, but and then people are like, man, it's so like MCU, and that's what's crazy about this one, is that it is so different, but it does have to hit these beats and these and
they maybe it
has to sell merchandise.
Yeah, I think that's why they're grading her on a curve, because they thought that she would be able to buck that trend. They're like, oh, you have all this leverage, but she didn't have the Oscar when she was making this, everyone. Like, she was just, I feel like she was probably really happy she got the job.
Yeah.
And this isn't as completely like her. She doesn't have the reins like she did in Nomadland. She has to work in this unit, but I think a lot of people were expecting her to be the one, which is kind of weird. I can't even think of a director who has that kind of expectation, but none of them have won an Oscar last year. So I guess, although Taika's Love and Thunder, I guess, is coming out and he won an Oscar.
Yep, that's true.
A couple years ago too. So we'll have to see. But who knows? I mean, it's very possible people just despise it because they're like, well, this isn't Oscar worthy. So, but let's talk about some of the actors in this. I'm not going to go through all of the entire list, but without spoiling anything, were there any actors that you thought really stood out, especially considering we didn't really know what their role was going to be in the movie? I know you're a big Kingo fan.
Yeah, I was a big Kumail Nanjiani fan of even after watching it. I'm just him and who plays Fastos Paperboy from Atlanta. He's also in Godzilla vs. King Kong. Fastos.
Yeah, I've got it pulled up, but I can't read fast. Brian Tyree Henry. And he was also the podcaster in Godzilla vs. Kong.
And we have people like that where I'm just so happy for them. But also, genuinely, they were awesome and really, really badass. And also just a win for equal representation. And it's so crazy to we just literally came from Disneyland before recording this, and we got to we wanted to watch the movie on opening night because we knew that they were going to have some of that stuff to do. And so when we saw Cersei and we saw Kingo and we saw Fastos there at Disneyland, we were so excited to see them because we had seen the movie, and also we just didn't want it to get spoiled. But yeah, it was just a really, really cool experience to see kids wanting to get their pictures taken with these different characters.
Really, just like days old. Superheroes.
I mean,
now
we're recording
staples.
This on like a Sunday or whatever, and so it's just crazy to see that past weekend reception of it all, of people loving it. But yeah, they were really, really badass. Their powers specifically were really, really cool on how they can go kind of toe to toe with like the biggest adversary without being the Superman character.
Yeah, they don't all have to have the same thing, which I think you're right was really great, because knowing that not everyone can fly or not everyone can do a certain thing made it seem like they all had a role, which was good. Instead of, I mean, maybe I would have watched just 12 Supermen just punching something out or something.
Icarus,
I will say that Icarus does feel like the Superman character in a interesting way, because he seems like kind of all powerful in this, or I don't know. I feel like he's the one that got like
he's got flight, super strength, and laser vision.
Yeah, and laser vision. He got it all. Gemma Chan plays, I believe, the main character in this movie. I mean, she's
Cersei.
Yeah, Cersei. I mean, I felt like she seemed to be the most empathetic towards humans, and everything was kind of through her point of view. But I will say we do spend a time, visiting with everyone else. I loved, I don't want to say his name wrong, but Barry Kogan, who is Druig.
Druig, yeah.
I thought he was really fantastic, and he is also, in a relationship with, I think one of the coolest
she has
new characters.
Yeah.
In this, I'm gonna
butcher her name.
I'm gonna butcher her name as well, especially since this list is so long. But her name is Lauren Ridloff, and she plays Makari. And she's a deaf actress,
the speedster.
Yeah, but she has some of the coolest sequences in the whole movie.
It's also it's so crazy because we already have a lot of cool speedster moments in cinematic history where you get the X-Men Days of Future Past Quicksilvers, and you get the Flash sequence in the Snyder Cut. That's probably like the best part of that movie, and you get it here, and you're like, oh my god, like it just reinvents on what a speedster can be, and just really, really cool again, representation wise, to have a hearing deficient representation.
Yeah, I'm really. I think this movie definitely warrants a rewatch. I don't think you can really absorb it all without watching it more than once, because even though it's a really long film, there's characters that are introduced like halfway through. We already talked about one of the main deviants, who's voiced by, I think, the Clown, the actor who plays Skarsgård, Bill Skarsgård, or something like that. But you kind of have to appreciate all of the different elements in this, and kind of how, because it's not even a movie that's told that conventionally. It changes in time and space and like all of these different things happening all at once. So kind of a trippy movie, huh?
Yeah, well, and it's also crazy because like you get these people like who are some part of some of the foundation of cinema, of Hollywood, of LA. Selma Hayek and Angelina Jolie playing Jack and
A-list
and Thena.
Yeah.
And they're not even part of the best parts of this movie, but they do bring a lot to the table, and it's really, really cool to see them kind of lead and be the veterans on set on some stuff like this. Even the guy who plays Gilgamesh, he does a really, really good job to play that balance to
that one
to
punch. Yeah. Thing is, yeah. I mean, I'm excited to watch it again because I've only seen it once. I'm not sure.
Sorry, Sprite. No love for you.
No love for you, Sprite. I know there's so many that you can't really not leave someone out because there's too many. There's too many. Okay, we need less Eternals. We need just one Eternal. I can't even imagine more than one right now because it's kind of crazy. It's kind of
what's the Celestial's name in this one?
The Celestials. Oh, I can't even pronounce it. Arishem. He's voiced by David Kaye. You may know him as Clank on Ratchet and Clank, baby.
That's awesome. He's made it.
He's a voice now.
That last Ratchet and Clank for the PS5, one of the best games I've ever played.
Yeah. Well, I guess overall, what are your thoughts on this? Again, we're going to talk a little bit more of this later this week. But any spoilery non-spoiler thoughts on Eternals? And again, we're not really talking about the reaction that much, just because I haven't really paid too much attention to it. It's doing okay at the box office. It's made, I believe, like $70 million. A little bit, maybe a little lower than it was expected to. And technically, it is the lowest grossing opening of the COVID era. Black Widow's still number one, and then Shang-Chi. And you know what's crazy? Number one Marvel movie this year. You want to guess it?
No.
Venom. Let There Be Carnage is the biggest Marvel release. I don't know if we would ever have predicted that from this year, and I bet that's only until
they're
the
selling
Spider-Man.
Venom stuff at the Disneyland.
I know, kind of crazy.
What the fudge?
Yeah, Avengers Campus has Venom and Carnage stuff.
They even had Wolverine stuff.
They got Wolverine stuff.
Blowing me out.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to be pretty bold and say that the new Spider-Man movie will probably be the biggest opening. I mean,
ever.
No, not ever, but at least for Marvel. But what are your final non-spoiler full thoughts on the Eternals?
When Venom shows up at the very end, it's freaking crazy.
Eddie, Eddie, you're an Eternal now.
I think it's crazy because it's getting. There's no way around not talking about the buzz that it's getting after it's debuted and stuff like that. And I think it's really, really fun because it's going to lower people's expectations. So I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. I think you should expect new lore to be spewed at you for 2.5 hours, but also I think it's necessary to pave the way for some of this bigger stuff. And I think we kind of touched on it a little bit in Loki, where it helped kind of move away from the Thanos stuff and make him seem like it was nothing. Even in What If, having Ultron grabbing the stones and him being exploring the multiverse and contributing to that multiverse of madness and stuff like that. I think we're gonna start to get into concepts where Thanos was a small fry, and now we're gonna start frying these bigger fish, and I think it lays the groundwork for some really, really neat stuff. I think we're gonna look back on this, and it's gonna age better because it made Galactus possible, or things like that. So it left off on a really, really crazy note at the very end of this movie. I think you should stick around for both the after credit scenes. I think
sure, it's
really, really cool. I saw some people get up after the first one, but stay to the very end. You're going to be rewarded with some of the best after credit scenes. And I mean, people popped up and they got a round of applause for both of the after credit scenes. But I was really excited. I think the cast was really, really cool. I think she did an awesome job introducing a lot of different characters and playing with the ensemble, where most people really can't do an ensemble piece, especially fresh off of something so small as Nomadland. So it was really, really cool to see the other spectrum with Chloe Zhao, and I hope that I hope that we can dive deeper into some of these characters, or I'm excited to see some of these characters maybe even in their own things, or split off and kind of be in the after credit scenes of other things and things like that. So it was a really, really fun ride, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I think you shouldn't buy into any hype, and I think you should go into it and watch it for yourself and decide for yourself. But I think if you go into it with an open mind, that it's impossible to not have fun. It does some really, really cool things that I think no Marvel movie does. The cinematography is probably some of the best in the entire MCU, and I think it's gonna blow people's minds with how big it is in the whole Marvel scope.
Yeah. I think that the scale of this movie is definitely already worth watching it in theaters while you can on the biggest screen possible. I think this is a very I think there's some really cognitive choices in this movie. It's incredibly melodramatic. I think you'll there's some like existential stuff. There's a lot of subversions of what people expect from a superhero movie. And then there's definitely familiar story beats that happen. You know, you get a lot of that. It's the same kind of suspense that you see in a lot of superhero movies, and the same kind of team up action sequences that you see in a lot of superhero movies. But all in all, I think it's an incredibly interesting film to see, and I think it's one of the most representative of many, many walks of life on the earth. In fact, I think they're like standing firm with some of the gay representation that's in the thing, and for that, it's being banned in some countries. So kudos to Disney to stand behind this movie and allow it to just remain as it is. But I think we're definitely, I think the decision to make this movie and to release this movie, regardless of kind of the response it's getting, is really showing that Marvel is going to kind of evolve from that one track kind of mindset where there's one kind of movie that they'll be making at a time into this. We've kind of already seen it with Loki, and honestly with What If, which is an animated show, and WandaVision, but this is going to definitely be like a we're at Disneyland right now. This is more of a 2-track kind of ride, baby. 3-track ride. Same line, 3 different rides, baby. That's what's happening in Marvel right now. And I love it. I think that's great. And I actually think that the fact that so many people aren't just lockstep in line behind this, and people are having kind of arguments about whether Marvel movies should be kind of this existential, or if maybe there shouldn't be the same third act in every single Marvel movie. Like, I love it. It's good. I think it shows that this is kind of a genre that can evolve.
People say like, man, it's so formulaic, and I was like, but this is why the formula works. Huh?
Get in there, yeah, and maybe then people will be like, okay, maybe we'll do some wild shit.
Well, and like that's always the question: how are you going to do it bigger? And this movie does that. It does it bigger.
It does it bigger and bigger.
I mean, it does, and it's not one of the worst, like the way the critics say it.
Yeah,
I can see it not being in people's top 5, but I think it's up there in like definitely the top, at least top 10 for sure.
I think that's really what it comes down to. It's not as bad as the critics say, but it's not the big groundbreaking. It's not the Dark Knight when it came out, or what was it? Batman Begins. It's not that movie. I mean, which people might have expected. I think people just thought Chloe Zhao's making it. She's making the first Oscar Best Picture.
I will say
Marvel movie.
That there is a lot of first appearances in this movie, obviously with all the Eternals and stuff like that. But there is also first appearanries in more ways than one, and you're gonna want to get to a theater to watch it ASAP because
you're talking about our cameo.
Yeah, where it's like, oh man, like it's gonna get spoiled for you, and you're gonna hate it because you wish you would have seen it live. So I would get to a theater ASAP. Yeah. Because again, I think it's more important than most people are think it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening to this. If you haven't seen the movie yet, because damn, you should go watch it.
Yeah.
And if you have, let us know what you thought of the film. Send us a message, I guess, for a while before we post anything, so that people don't potentially spoil it. But we'll be back with a big spoiler full episode with John and Sophia. And let's see, we're going to do an Eternals-sized episode, so we'll have 12
people on.
It's gonna be.
We're gonna have all 10 of the Eternals.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and the Deviant. We gotta have a DV.
Crow.
We're gonna have a DV there with us. But we've come to the end of this episode. Andrew, what do you have to plug?
Nothing much. Just keep listening to this good stuff. I think Marvel has something coming out like at least something every other month.
Next month we're talking Spider-Man. Isn't that insane?
So yeah, it's already here. Because then we're gonna go on to even bigger fish than Spider-Man.
You know, if I'm not mistaken, next week we're talking Hawkeye.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to get into some really, really cool stuff with all the new Marvel stuff. Maybe we might even do an Avengers Campus review. Sophia Emmanuel.
That's right. We'll probably do one. Yeah, spoiler alert. It was good.
We won.
Sophia
Emmanuel and I were down here in Anaheim, and we decided to check out the Avengers Campus. We ate at the Pimp's Test Kitchen, and we got onto the Web Slingers ride, and had a lot of good
We bought
fun.
some stuff. We bought a lot of merch.
We did buy a lot of stuff. It was really, really cool. So yeah, we might do an extra.
We rode the ride, so you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you should still do it. That's kind of how screwed up would that be to be like, I heard about it on a podcast. I'm good.
And they have some really, really cool exclusive merch that I think that you'd really, really like especially after you ride that ride, and that's why it makes it exclusive. But so maybe we'll do an episode there.
Yeah.
Check out the Countdown Strikes Back. We're doing the Babu's Book Club. We're about to start that up again. We just finished the Star Wars Vision stuff. We're about to get into the Book of Boba Fett. That's about to start up as well. So get on that stuff. We read all the High Republic stuff, so you don't have to. Check out the Director Showdown with Brendan Adam. Check out Dirt Sheet Radio with my boy John Escudero. And all that good stuff. Wear a mask, get vaccinated, get your boosters, and all that good stuff. I did say we're down here in Disney, but we're being safe and masking up when we need to, and showing our Vax card and things like that. So get out there and do it safely. But yeah.
Well, thanks so much for listening to the pod. We'll see you later on this week. Please rate and review and send it around to your friends to let them know to listen to our show. And go to patreon.com/DelfinPod, DelfinPod. If you want to support the pod, well, we'll see ya. Or I guess you'll hear us next week. And who knows where Andrew and I will be, what hotel we'll be in what city, or if more than likely we'll be home. But thanks so much for listening. Watch Eternals. Bye-bye.
Bye.